Stegosaurus is one of the world's most distinguishable dinosaurs, instantly recognizable by its 2 rows of upright dermal plates. These run all along its back towards the powerful spikes at the end of its tail.
Hey folks, this is Best in Slot, and you just saw the brand new Stegosaurus species field guide. Now, I think some people may be a little disappointed we're still getting these repeat dinosaurs, but there's only a few left at this point: Nasutoceratops, Tyrannosaurus Rex, and then sort of Mosasaurus and sort of Pteranodon. But I think those would both be very exciting species field guides for sure. Even the Rex would be pretty exciting. And after that, well, it has to be new stuff, so keep on holding on hope. It's got to be said though, even if this is a bit of a repeat in terms of the dinosaurs, there is some really cool stuff in this one. We're going to start with this first sort of scene, and here we have 2 different stegosaurs walking along a field. The one closest to us has this dark red, almost burnt looking skin colour, and the one a little bit further back, obviously creamy and milky. And this is a really good I don't want to say those words, but this is a really good way to split the pattern system up a little bit more. It is worth noting the one in the background has these kind of black spots going along its side, but I think the only reason we don't see those on the red one is because they blend in with the skin colour. Now, I think the tone of the plates is partially depicted by the skin colour. You can see the one closest to us has a sort of green colour on the inside of the plates, the other one has a sort of creamy colour like the actual body. I think that will be determined by the dinosaur skin colour, but you can see on both of them they've got the same pattern, this striped pattern. There's a stripe through the middle of the plate, and there's a stripe along the top of the plate. The one in the background has like a soft lilac, and the one closest to us has very intense purple, verging on pushing towards like a hot pink sort of colour. It's pretty cool actually. So, as we said before, there's going to be your dinosaur skin colour, then you choose a pattern to apply, and then you choose a colour to apply to that pattern. And this is probably the best demonstration of that we've ever seen in game. And as I've said before, I think it just gives your dinosaurs a lot of personality, makes them feel a little bit special, makes them stand out from each other. You can really differentiate your species, even if they're all using the same base colour, they could still look entirely different. Of course, some of the patterns may be more noticeable than this. There's going to be several. We think maybe 7 is what we've heard, so some of them will be along the body. They'll all be in different places, I'm sure. The Stego itself looks fantastic. The tail, nice and high. I think we're all happy to see that again. I think it's had less of a noticeable glow up than, say, the Triceratops or the Tyrannosaurus Rex, but I think it needed one less than those dinosaurs did. I think by the time we got the Stegosaurus in Return to Jurassic Park, etc., we were all, generally speaking, pretty happy with Stegosaurus. It's not a dinosaur I heard many complaints about. We do see the return of one of the animations there in the background. The creamy boy, as he'll now be known, does the hop, the little, I don't know how to call it. Reminds me very much of the animation they play when they emerge, or the Stegosaurids when they emerge from the dinosaur hatchery. And once he's done that, he looks to the left, he does a little hop, gives a little shake. I don't really know what that's for, just a general shaking off the cobwebs kind of thing. Maybe it's as another Stegosaurus is approaching her territory, she's doing like a little bit of a threat display, a little bit of a dominance display. Like, I'm here, I'm just letting you know I'm around. Watch your back, buddy boy, etc. There's a couple other things to point out. To the right of the creamy girl is this tree. It's a very unusual looking tree. It very much stands. I've been informed that the tree that I mentioned is indeed paleofauna. It is an extinct genus of a tree-like fern from the Cretaceous period called Tempskia, or Tempskaya, or something like that. I should say as well, that information came from Wes, the Supreme Ape Leader, so shout out to him on the Discord. Moving on to the second scene, and this is really the bit that kind of blew my mind a little bit, I'm not going to lie. So, first of all, not only do we see the fence, well, we see the fence again, it's got the red at the bottom, so I think we can kind of clarify that it is indeed a fence and something else in the previous frame. Not much to say about anything else here. We see some water. Still no idea about how that's going to function. Personally, I think water will be very similar to how it was in Jurassic World Evolution 1. They've talked about that already. It will have the same placement. Whether we'll be allowed deeper water is another question. I kind of go back and forth. I'm a little bit iffy on that personally. But of course, the highlight of this scene is this animation playing out on the left-hand side. It's amazing. It's like a genuinely staggering animation. It's really, really cool. I'm kind of blown away. Creamy Stego rolls around, shuffles around on her belly, scratches her chin and neck sort of on the ground, looks over to her friend, and then rolls over back towards her. It's really detailed, really realistic looking. It's got like a heft or weight to it. You can see as she rolls, like when she's on the ground, you can see the belly sort of shift as an individual entity below her body. You know, if you've got a belly and you turn yourself very quickly, the belly will move, but after you to an extent, and that's what's happening right here with the Stegosaurus, which is really cool to see. I think she's just... It sort of looks like she's trying to relax like a dog, and she's like trying to get comfortable, because she does end up lying on her side entirely, but we don't know if she's gonna get back up after that. Now, what I'm also curious about is this a planned interaction? Is this a two dinosaur interaction to an extent? Because you can see, as the one on the ground, she turns to the side to her left before she hits the ground at the end, and as she does, the one on the right reacts. It clearly turns its head at the same time. Now, that could be just a little bit of playing around with the animation system, a little bit of bullshotting, I guess you would call it, but, you know, who knows? Maybe this is something that they'll do on their own, but also other dinosaurs will react to it and acknowledge what's going on. The thing I really like about this is it feels like the kind of behaviour the game was sorely lacking in the first game. It just didn't have behaviours that made them feel like real animals. You know, they didn't do, beyond their basal impulses of eat and social and drink and sleep eventually, there wasn't much else driving the dinosaurs. They didn't play, they didn't do much in the way of sort of ambient behaviours. This is a big step towards that, as is the Coelophysis social behaviour we saw last week. She's adorable. I love it. It's my favourite animation in the game. I think it's fantastically well made. It's got, again, real heft to it. You can see this moment as she's about to flop over. She kind of leans forward. It's like she hangs in the air just for a second. You know, like a basketball player when they jump and they seem to sort of freeze in the air at the top just for a split second before gravity and their weight brings them down. Again, that's kind of how it feels. Not much else to say on that one though, so let's move on to the third phase, and we have our first look at a dinosaur breakout. Now again, this is the same animation we saw back in Jurassic World Evolution, not wholly surprising. Again, Jurassic World Evolution had tons of fantastic animations, but it had two main problems. The first was that there wasn't enough of them, which does seem to have been addressed at least partially so far, and the second was that the transition into those animations always felt very stilted and unnatural. This time we actually see what sort of looks to be the transition to an extent. She kind of shuffles along, she's eyeing up her spot, and then bam, she just whaps herself against the wall. You know, she had a little nap, a little relaxation a moment ago, and that wasn't enough to simmer her down, as it were. So anyway, we can't take too much away from how the breakout system is going to work from this. We need to see it for other dinosaurs and stuff like that. Again, I think a lot of us hope that the breakout mechanics have been revised at least a little bit. From my perspective, I would hope that there are certain fences that certain dinosaurs simply can't break out of. It was always ridiculous when a Struthiomimus could break out of a concrete fence. I always felt there should be like a minimum barrier for security needs. You know, if you have a medium security fence, your low security dinosaurs can't break out. Of course, that wouldn't include the very biggest, toughest dinos. So other than that, we've got the repeat of the animation. That's absolutely fine, totally what you'd expect. We've got some cool stuff in the background though. There's a rock, okay, on the right hand side. It's a new rock, it's not a rock we've seen before. It's more like a slate grey sort of colour. But the interesting thing is as well, it's got this different colour, and yeah, the rocks are important, shut up. It's got this sort of different colour at the top. It's got this sort of pale, faded out sandy sort of tone that then fades down into dirt and then into the rest of the rock. It's really interesting actually. I'm not sure what that's about, but I'm curious on that one. We get another look at what seems to be a slightly redesigned hotel. There's a line of green going across it. It's that big white building in the background, which looks a little bit off. It looks a little bit interesting. I'm wondering if the hotel, even though they're probably not totally customizable in the way that our shell buildings are going to be, might have a little bit of colour customization in there. Innovation Centre returns as well. We can see some more buildings in the background. There's a couple of interesting things I want to focus on the street. The first is you can see this sort of white, almost monolithic thing in the middle of the street. I've been staring at this thing for a long time trying to figure out what exactly it is. I've heard various suggestions. Someone suggested it could be a park map sort of thing, which is interesting. The thing that's interesting about it to me though, because to me it looks a little bit like it's part of the shop. It's the same shape as the shop on the left hand side. You know, it has the same sort of features, this tall, rectangular white shape. But it's quite far away from the shop. You know, we know that we can decorate the outside of our shops, but this feels like it might be pushing that a little bit too far. It feels like it's more like in the middle of the path, and it's got flowers around the base. It's definitely not a flag like it was in Jurassic World Evolution. And this kind of applies in the backdrop as well. We can see there's an umbrella there, a parasol, and a fairly unusual little red shape next to it, and they don't seem to be attached to a building at all. I'm very curious about this, so maybe the customization will extend at least a little bit more to the path. Now, we know that we're going to be able to place benches and chairs and stuff like that, and we've heard some stuff we're going to be able to place. Maybe the parasol, whatever the hell that red thing is, I have no idea. Is it a bin? It could be a bin. It seems a bit large. I genuinely can't tell. It's red and there's like a black shape towards the top front of it. It's quite rectangular. No idea. And this, whatever this is in the front, this monolith, this maybe park map, this maybe just a general fancy display kind of thing, look to be placeable items on the path. That would be my guess. They look like items we'll actually put down on our paths. And there's a lot of this going on. You can't see it at times because the stego does obscure it, but there's this weird wooden totem thing sort of towards the fence, which again does not appear to be related to any nearby buildings. To me it looks like a fancy light, perhaps like a tall light with a wooden structure around it. And then just as one final thing, in the background attached to the hotel we have again a very weird looking building. I don't know if this is part of the hotel. It certainly didn't seem to be there when we've seen hotels in the past, but this is like staggered shape. You can see it drops down in 4 or 5 phases, getting lower and lower to the ground each time, with these kind of crisscross triangle windows at the side of it. It's a very unusual looking building. I'm wondering if, again, our hotel has a little bit more customization than we necessarily expected. The hotel is not as unique a shape and not as pre-designed as a shape as it was in the previous game. We haven't really talked about this as a possibility, but maybe other buildings outside of our main 2 hub buildings, our attractions and our amenities, are also going to have some decent level of customization to them. So as per usual, we're going to finish things off taking a look at the species profile text on the Frontier forums, and there's just particular bits I want to focus on. You can read the entire thing if you want to on your own bloody time. It was a relatively social creature and lived in herds, slowly moving across plains and forests whilst feeding. It had a notably short neck and small head, so it's believed that it mostly ate shrubs, low bushes, and fallen fruit and ferns. And due to this, they'll be able to eat fruit from a ground feeder in your parks too. Now this is the interesting bit, because as far as we're aware, we believed there wasn't a feeder, like an actual feeder, in Jurassic World Evolution 2 for the herbivores. We were under the impression they would just feed on plants that you place, but a ground feeder definitely suggests the return of an old style feeder, which I guess makes sense for something like fruit. I guess it's harder, like if you've got like some paleo bushes knocking around, it's kind of easy to justify them growing back and stuff like that. But if you've got a pile of fruit, it's harder to imagine a world where that magically resupplies itself. So perhaps this is actually not the end of ground feeders. Now maybe we'll have a choice. It does say it will eat ferns and low bushes and stuff like that. So, maybe you don't have to use these feeders, but it does seem you will have that option if you maybe want a more technical approach to your parks. It could just be the wording is weird. It could be a placeable fruit item. Maybe they will knock the fruit off trees and eat that. That seems unlikely to me. But it's just interesting wording. I'm very curious to see whether that comes true. The next little bit is interesting as well. Stegosaurus in your parks will be amicable creatures that will require some company, and so can be placed within moderate herds, as well as with several other herbivores, although make sure they give Ceratopsidae a wide berth, as the two don't really get along. They'll be able to defend themselves in the herd against some predators if sharing the same enclosure, and are too big for some smaller carnivores to hunt. So, 2 things I want to talk about there. I really like this idea that not all your herbivores can live together. It makes the herbivores feel much more like real creatures rather than just kind of fodder for your carnivores. They actually have their own wants and needs and social interactions, and they won't get along with certain other species, just like it would be in reality. Really like that change. I think that's a huge one for our herbivores. And again, just another reference to being too small for smaller carnivores to hunt. This was a big problem back in Jurassic World Evolution, wherein every dinosaur, basically all your carnivores, could kill anything they wanted. Some of the DLC dinosaurs were a little restricted on that, but it was always ridiculous seeing, your little carnivores take down solo these large herbivores. So it's nice that that's been changed. It's worth keeping these facts in mind when pairing them up with other species. Stegosaurus require plenty of foliage as well as some forests. Remember, due to their stature, they won't be able to reach some trees, so make sure you provide them with plenty of vegetation. So it does sound, as I say, that we're able to keep them fed, maybe without the food. Maybe there's an inbuilt paleo flora system, just like in Jurassic World Evolution 1, wherein providing them with certain food will make them a little bit happier or give you a little bonus stats or to your park rating, or something like that. And that's about it for me, folks. So we saw a brilliant new animation, love that. We saw a really good display of the new pattern system. But honestly, the most exciting thing may have been these decorations. I'm not really sure how that's going to play out, but I'm very curious to see just what level of customization they've given us outside of the buildings. The buildings look brilliantly customizable, very happy with those, but what can we do with the rest of our park? This seems to be our first proper hint towards that, but you know, who knows? I have no idea. We got a glimpse. We'll have to see next week. I'd guess next week will probably be the Nasutoceratops, if I had to guess. I'm hoping for Mosasaurus, I think we all are, but probably Nasutoceratops or T-Rex. Pteranodon would be pretty cool, they could do that. Shows the aviary system a little bit more. T-Rex, Nasuto, Pteranodon would be my bet. I think Gamescom, which is next month, I think, sometime in August, will be the big sort of push forward for Jurassic World Evolution 2. They love Gamescom, so I think we may be living on the old species until then, but we'll have to wait and see. At the very least, they might show us a dinosaur we haven't seen before, but has already been revealed via that Andrew Rayner article. Either way, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Throw me a like if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you lovely folks next time. Cheers much love as always. Bye-bye.